The president, everybody in Washington, whether they want to admit it or not, knows that this president is right when it comes to tariffs and when it comes to trade. In fact, Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, "How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, 'I will not endorse the status quo'?" Those are the words of Nancy Pelosi in 1996. Well, President Trump is finally answering her call 27 years later. Nancy Pelosi can thank President Trump today for the 104% retaliatory tariff that will be going into effect on China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying, "These are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. The administration needs to move beyond words, take action now to reverse a trend that threatens our prospects for future economic growth." And Chuck Schumer said that in 2007. Finally, in 2025, President Trump is taking action. Recently defeated Democrat Sherrod Brown said on deficits in 2012 that our deficit then at China had reached an all-time high, and it was on pace to recede last year's record. The trade deficit had cost American workers millions of jobs at the time. These are the words of Democrats years ago. It is about time America finally has a president who is taking action to restore those millions of jobs back to the United States of America, to boost our manufacturing industry. He's doing what's right for the American people. It will take a lot of labor. It will take a lot of effort. That's exactly what the American people elected this president to do.
The stock market continues to get punished as Donald Trump enacts retaliatory tariffs on top of China's retaliatory tariffs, okay? But is this all by design? Is there something else going on? Or is this just an amazing buying opportunity when you could get Google, Amazon, Nvidia for half price? We'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out. But in the meantime, I want to hear some interesting aspects of this being discussed by Chamath Palihapitiya with Andrew Schulz. But before we get to these clips, don't forget to like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
So right now in this year, America has $6 trillion of credit that is expiring that we don't have the money to pay for. So what do we need to do? We need to reborrow that money.
So issue more bonds.
So we have to sell bonds. So who are the buyers? The buyers are all these people around the world, central banks, pension plans.
Also us.
Yeah.
So yes, but asterisks. It's about a third are Americans, but 2/3 are everywhere. Okay, it's like the Saudi Aramco, it's Shell, it's Novartis, it's the
China.
Central Bank of Lesotho, it's China. China owns almost $1 trillion of our debt. So the whole point is, if you can bring the cost of borrowing down, we save ourselves a lot of money. We make the headache much smaller. Now, here's a huge problem that happened at the end of Biden.
Real quick, before you say that. So essentially, if we can lower the APR, if we can lower the interest payment, then at the end of every year, the money that we owe is much less, and then we can start chipping away at the principal instead of just paying the interest.
There you go.
Another important thing to understand is the more people buy treasuries, the lower the interest payment is on those treasuries. The less people that are buying treasuries, the higher it goes. Right?
Exactly. This is like this.
So
exactly.
If you can, some people say if you can scare people in the equities market, meaning just the stocks, right? If you can scare them about stocks, if you can create uncertainty in the stock market,
then they go buy treasuries.
People go, I just need some security. I need something backed with the full, support and fidelity of the U.S. government. I need treasuries. They start dumping all that money into treasuries. You can reduce that yield, which is that interest payment.
So I think it's important to just make sure, like, are tariffs inflationary? They can be, but not necessarily.
But if we import most of our products and we're applying tariffs to almost all the product we import, then that's going to be a huge price increase for pretty much all the goods that we buy.
But it's not correlated to the cost of the actual goods sold. Like, the reason inflation happens is, the price of oil goes up, so it's more expensive to run the factory. So then the goods become, nothing changed to make your shoe. Nothing. It's just that when it landed in the port of LA, there used to be a piece of paper that you would stamp that said 0%. Now the thing is stamped and it says 10%. The actual cost of making this thing has not gone up.
Yeah, but Nike's going to
Pass
apply
that cost on.
pass the
Yeah,
cost
he's not
to the
saying
consumer.
he's not saying that the cost doesn't get passed on. So let's say
But it's a one-time pass-through.
So let's say in the first year,
gonna hurt tremendously.
Yeah. Nobody's saying it won't hurt, but why it's different than inflation. So in the first year, it would feel identical to inflation. In the second year, it would stay the same. Whereas in the second year with inflation, it would continue at that rate.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is I'm just concerned about the people who are barely getting by, and now
1,000.
food's going to be more expensive.
No,
Everything's gonna be
1,000%.
Right.
But here's what they said, which is, I think you want to see this happen. What they said is there's going to be these price shocks. You're right. So year one is difficult, okay? But it could raise upwards of $750 billion a year, okay?
You're saying tariffs.
Tariffs. What they said that they would do is they would then turn around and cut the federal
Income tax.
income tax for anybody making $150,000 or less to zero.
So what they're doing is using the tariffs to offset the price shock.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't.
But and this is the math, and that hasn't been 100% established yet. But instead of like putting the burden on the American consumer, we put the burden on the foreign country to pay that delta.
And then effectively subsidize the consumer through an income tax.
And to be fair, the
Exactly.
$750 billion, I assume, that's assuming everybody pays the tariff fully. Which I
Okay,
don't know
so
if that's actually
this
gonna happen.
is so this is an important point. I would say right now it's a moving target, meaning the sharps before Liberation Day, the smart money line was at like 250 billion. Okay. That's Wall Street. I mean, we'll put smart in quotes, but that was their number. And part of why the stock market went berserk was they just got it totally wrong. And the back of the envelope math that I did and that a couple of my friends did, and I would say they're much smarter than I am, they got to 750. I got to 750 as well. Howard Lutnick, who's a commerce secretary, said like anywhere approaching 750, we have a line of sight to be able to cut income taxes to zero for anybody making 150 or less.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean,
So we're in the magic zone here, guys.
So here's
you
the
know what I
thing.
mean?
So there's a perfect example. Like, there's all this conversation about the midterms right now. Trump tanks the stock market. People get screwed over by what some people calling inflation, but like the price shock. But if you announce at the end of the year, there's a $750 billion surplus because of taxes, and we're eradicating income tax for people making under $150,000, midterms are going red.
I mean, bro, forget midterms. They'll want Trump for the third term. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine a taxless future for people making under $150,000 a year? Right? Never mind Trump for a third term. It would be Emperor Trump forever. Not that I'm endorsing that, okay? But there's some interesting concepts going on there, right? We're talking about being able to refinance $6 trillion in debt. Imagine the savings going on there, okay? But also, we have that $1 trillion in savings that Doge might be able to make in the government cuts, and that would be for every single year, saving $1 trillion in addition. And also, don't forget, we have this supposed $1 trillion that Chamath is talking about that could be collected in tariffs. Okay, so we're talking about that refinance amount of money, and then these trillions of dollars in savings that closes our deficit, right? And hopefully with even more so we can now start paying off our national debt. This would be truly amazing, and this was the goal that's being floated, of course, by collecting all of these tariffs. Now, of course, this is all just simply a negotiation tactic by Donald Trump to bring jobs back into America and to collect money from countries that have been taking advantage of us for years, all right? But the end result could be truly phenomenal if we're willing to, of course, put up with a little bit of pain. And this pain doesn't affect people who are necessarily in middle America, the folks out there whose roads and houses and towns are crumbling to the ground, right? This is affecting people who are about to retire. This is affecting people who have a whole bunch of money in the stock market. And oddly enough, traditionally, those are the people the Democrats have always complained about, okay? But now, of course, they are the Democrats. They want to save the status quo. They want to save all of their money, their big investments, all those kickbacks they've gotten from the NGOs, etc., right? That's where we're at right right now. But it was interesting hearing Donald Trump also talk about on the campaign trail, hey, we have to have actually this growing economy, right? When you have more companies come in, more people being hired, all of a sudden you have more tax revenue being generated. And that's also a way you can close that gap between deficit and debt, etc., that I just talked about, okay? These are all truly fundamental ideas that, by the way, the Democrats used to agree with, as I showed in that first segment with Karoline Leavitt, right? Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all these people were out there saying, hey, we have all of these huge problems with China coming in, taking over, taking away all of our manufacturing, stealing our IP, and then selling it back to us at cheaper prices because of slave labor wages and often slave labor itself, okay? We have to change the game, all right? So even though the Democrats apparently now have been bought and paid for, Donald Trump is seeing the big picture. And a lot of these ideas, you know, we've kind of seen and thought about, but here it is being presented out in the open. We are seeing how this sausage is being made. And of course, I'm liking the result. I'm liking these ideas of not paying any income tax. I'm liking the idea of foreign countries actually providing for our lifestyle. But of course, there is a time limit on this. We only have until the midterms for Donald Trump to really see this turnaround, all right? That, of course, is what we're waiting for. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and say hi to your mom for me.